Here is my scary story that happened to me on Halloween. At the end of October, my spouse had to leave to visit her parents in another city. This left me alone in our new home. The whole week before Halloween, I wasn't myself. I felt exhausted and tired in the mornings. I had a sudden feeling of anxiety at home in the evenings. I couldn't find things in their usual places, and I had nightmares at night. I thought it was because of my busy work schedule and tried not to think about the bad things. The night before the holiday, I hesitated to open the front door. Suddenly, a black cat ran in through the open door, out of nowhere. I rushed into the house after him, but no matter how much I looked for him, did not call him. It was as if through the floor the cat was nowhere to be found. Suddenly, I had an idea. I should look at the CCTV cameras installed in the house. What I saw gave me a feeling of horror and made me forget about the black cat. At first, as expected, the footage did not show anything unusual. But then I saw a scene that had happened last night, and it changed my view of reality. I was on the screen, but not as I remembered myself. I was in my pajamas fighting something invisible, flailing my arms and trying to defend myself against the invisible attack. The feelings that overwhelmed me at that moment were indescribable. I couldn't remember the incident, couldn't understand why I was fighting something I couldn't see. My helplessness and horror at what was happening was unbearable. What followed in the video footage was another horrifying moment. I was standing in front of a mirror in the hallway, but my eyes were filled with fear and disgust. I couldn't recognize what I saw in the mirror, but my hand was raised toward it as if I wanted to do something about the horror. Every now and then my hand would wiggle, as if trying to pull something out of the air. I tried to remember that moment, but nothing came to mind. Goosebumps covered my skin, and I began to realize that my house could hold far worse secrets than I had ever imagined. After countless hours of searching through records and trying to remember what had happened, I realized that my house was no longer a safe place. I spent Halloween night in a hotel, the general merriment frightening and terrifying me. That night changed me completely. I felt a deep trace of fear and anxiety. Every time Halloween comes around, I feel fears awaken in me that I can't understand or control. I avoid being alone on Halloween, trying to appease the unknown souls of the dead who come into our world on that night. It began as usual. We, 3 old friends, went to the woods for a camping trip to spend Halloween night like we did when we were kids. The tents were pitched, the campfire was lit, and in the evening we had a loud party to celebrate our meeting, telling scary stories and playing pranks on each other. The fun went on for a long time, and I had no idea that night would change my life. At one point, as the blazing campfire took on the golden hue of the blue-black sky, one of my friends, Tom, brought out a strange rock. It was smooth and hot, as if it had just fallen from the flames. Its surface was carved with incomprehensible hieroglyphics, as if by a flame of fire. We looked at it with curiosity and wonder, but none of us could read the symbols. Tom told us that he had found the stone in a nearby river and that he couldn't resist its strange allure. He then took the stone to my tent, and we continued to have fun. None of us thought at the time that this stone would attract something dark and sinister. When I awoke in the morning, I was filled with terror. There was a thick fog around our tent, and I could see nothing but a white veil. I tried to wake my friends, but I could not find them. They were gone. Full of terror, I ran outside and tried to penetrate the fog to find some trace of them. But the fog was impenetrable, and I saw no trace of my friends or any sign of life. Only the fire, still burning, remained. I realized that this stone was connected to the disappearance of my friends, but I didn't know what to do next. I waited for my friends until evening, hoping that they would return. The fog around the tent grew thicker, and the cold blew in my face. But time passed, and my friends never came. Afraid of spending another night alone in that dark void, I decided to hurry home. Soon I reached my home, which was not far from the forest. But when I found all my friends safely at home, all my panic and fear seemed silly. They were in their houses, looking at me with surprised looks, as if they didn't even know about our trek into the forest. I tried to ask them about the hike, but none of them remembered anything. They said they'd had fun at a Halloween party the night before, and that I was just fantasizing about our hike. I felt like a crazy person who had lost touch with reality, and I almost convinced myself that it was all a dream until I found that strange rock with the strange hieroglyphs in my backpack. It lay there as if to confirm that everything I had experienced was real. Again gripped by fear and confusion, I realized that this was not a dream, but something much more mysterious and sinister. My friends were home, but their memories had been erased, and only I remembered what had happened in the fog of that night. My life was ordinary and unremarkable until the mysterious phone calls began. It all began one October evening when my phone rang. It was an unknown number. I picked up the phone and heard my own voice on the other end. "Is that you?" the voice asked. "Yes, it's me. But who are you?" I replied, experiencing a strange sense of déjà vu. The voice continued, "You won't believe this, but I am you from the future. I must warn you of something important. The doorbell is about to ring. You will open it and see a girl in a witch costume. Give her all the sweets you can find, listen to me, and follow all instructions exactly." The connection cut off. I frowned, thinking it was some kind of joke or prank. But just then, the doorbell rang. Hurrying to open the door, I couldn't believe my eyes. On the threshold stood a girl in a witch costume. She said nothing, looked at me strangely, without blinking, and held out a bag of candy. I was so stunned that I silently handed her the candy and watched as she slowly disappeared. From that day on, the calls were repeated every night. The voice began to tell me about events that would happen in the near future, down to the minute and second. It warned me about a car accident that happened to my coworker, about errors in my quarterly report, about a fight with my spouse, about breaking a finger on my hand at practice. I was shocked and fascinated at the same time. How could I explain these mysterious calls of myself from the future? I found it hard to believe, but the information he provided was too accurate and detailed to ignore. These calls had become a part of my life. I knew in advance the events that were about to happen, and I tried to change the outcome. But no matter how hard I tried, some events still unfolded according to the scenario described to me in the phone calls. The calls continued for a week. On Halloween night, I waited as usual for the call, but no one called. Late that night, I woke up to a strange sound. I heard the sound of eerie laughter. Cautiously, I went to the front door and looked through the peephole. There was no one there, but on the porch, I saw something strange. When I opened the door, I saw a skeletal hand holding a cell phone. I knew it was for me. There was only one number in the phone book. It was my contact. My hair turned gray that night. See more of our stories